Tonight, a look at the debate that people across this country are having, whether it be in schools or at the dinner table. We're talking about measles and the pushback that some parents are creating over whether or not they're choosing to vaccinate their kids. And tonight, we're speaking with a doctor who specializes in infectious diseases to tell you what you need to know. In the measles discussion, it has political ramifications as well here. Governors, even potential presidential hopefuls here, debating back and forth here. This is an issue the grand old party's got to wrestle with. Plus, the New York State Assembly has a new speaker. His name, Carl Hastie, elected today. The question is he going to be the man to help corruption get cleaned up out of Albany? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us. And tonight, we will start with the measles scare that has hit the country. Now, the CDC says there have been more than 100 measles cases in 14 states so far this year. The American Academy of Pediatrics, they're urging parents to get their kids vaccinated. Doctors say it is for the sake of babies who are too young to get the shots. However, some parents, they're still refusing to budge.
We should be fully informed with what exactly is in each and every injection that goes into our child's body.
You're putting the community at risk, you're putting your child at risk. It's just not okay.
I'm not gonna subject my child to going to the doctor's office, where there could be a possible case of the measles and us being unvaccinated.
All right, a little bit of a sampling of some of the sound bites on this issue. Now, take California. A measles outbreak there has spread from Disneyland, that after a family that was not vaccinated decided to visit the theme park. In California, more than 90 people have already been infected with measles this year. And that state, parents are not forced to vaccinate their children before kindergarten if they claim a religious or a philosophical exemption. And in Mississippi, parents, they can opt out of vaccines for only medical reasons. Every state requires vaccinations and every state allows exemptions if there are medical reasons, and as you saw in the state of California, even philosophical ones. Dr. Richard Klein, he's a practicing physician in Yorktown Heights. He specializes in internal medicine and infectious diseases. He's also an associate professor of medicine at New York Medical College, and he's kind enough to join us now. Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll get into all the political and all the rights and wrongs and everything else, but first let's go down the line here. We're not talking epidemic, but yet I'm seeing uniformity, whether it be from the AMA, the CDC, every alphabet, an acronym we want to use. Everybody agrees this is based in science, this is good medicine, and this is dangerous when we're talking about kids under the age of 1 and people that have immune deficiency issues here. This is nuts not getting people vaccinated,
sure.
Right?
And there are other children who cannot get the vaccine because they can't afford it. So there are a lot of people who are able to get that disease, especially people who are vaccinated. About 10% will lose their immunity over the years afterwards. So it's a non-brainer. The science says that it's a very safe vaccine. There's no autism related with it.
We'll speak to that because
okay.
You hear the anti-vaxxers out there say, hey, there's a correlation. A kid's perfectly healthy one day, gets vaccinated, the next minute he's got autism. Is there anything in science, is there any even reputable thread that says that there is a correlation between the two?
Not at all, not at all. But getting back to the first point, it's a no-brainer. Everybody should get vaccinated. The vaccine's been in existence since 1960. Before that, about 500 kids would die every year in the United States, 500 people. About 1 million people would get measles. There are about a couple 100,000 people that die every year in Europe and in Africa. It's a very common disease abroad. Since 2000, we have eradicated measles from our country. That is, the only way you get measles is when it comes in from foreigners. And then somebody gets it who has not been immunized. They go home, they go to the school, they go to the emergency room, and pop, before you know it. Last month, there were 400 kids, people that came down with measles. This month, the following month, from the same epidemic, another 90 to 100 people have gotten sick. And the interesting thing is most doctors never saw measles. I mean, I was lucky or unlucky enough to see it during training. I used to treat people with it. And then since it's been gone over the past 30, 40 years, newer doctors don't see it.
I think it's something that's somewhat recent, and I think it's beyond just medicine. People who love conspiracy theories, and more than that, if they read it online, they take it as fact. These anti-vaxxers, it's not just restricted to measles.
Not
you
at
must
all.
run into this where, I mean, it sounds stupid, but are we going to be running into one day where people don't get the polio vaccine? I mean, where's this go from here?
It's sad because these people really are not educated. There's more fact out there, and if you sat and gave them scientific study after scientific study, you can't convince them. That lady that said, I'm not going to get my kid shot up with something that's in that vaccine. By not getting that vaccine, the child is at risk to getting sick and even to die. He's also a risk to society because he will or she will spread it to other children or people who are not vaccinated.
Every doctor takes a Hippocratic oath.
Yes.
But I've seen pediatricians say right on their front door, if you didn't vaccinate your kid, don't bring him into my office.
Well, that's
Do you go that far?
No, that's crazy.
Well, don't you risk the other kids in the waiting room here if the kid's got measles, getting them sick?
Okay, we have two sets of doors to pediatrics. One is for well kids, one is for sick kids. And if the child is not vaccinated, the staff should know about that, and then they take the child in 1, 2, 3, put him in a special area so that that child does not become contagious. But that's ridiculous not to take
But
care
isn't
of.
there's also an element of, listen, people take their kids unvaccinated to Disneyland. A kid gets on a train going for an hour-and-a-half ride up to Albany, in a tube here, and there's a 90% chance, as I understand it, that you can contract measles if you're not vaccinated, if you come in contact with it. We're almost putting the onus now on the person who's done the right thing to come in exposure with somebody who's choosing to do for their own purposes not the right thing.
Well, the child at risk, obviously, is the person who didn't get vaccinated. And it's so easy to catch. That's why you've seen, from Disney, it went to 14 different states. And as I said, 800 kids have now come down with 800 people have come down with the disease. Somebody coughs and they're in the same room as you, you're able to get measles from that cough.
At least at all my kids' schools, you bring something with peanuts into the school here, you're going to be put up against the wall. I'm exaggerating, but to make a point. How is it that, understandably so, with kids who've got nut allergies or whatever, you can't do that, but at the same time, parents can decide to carry, their kids are not going to get inoculated, and then the risk borne out for everyone else. Where do you think, is the law too flexible? Does it allow for too much? How do we, from your vantage point, kind of regulate this more?
I believe that we should not pass laws that keep kids out of school just because they're not vaccinated. However, they should be kept out of school during times of crises, such as a measles outbreak. And you can't pass a law because that would include every vaccine, and not every vaccine is safe. We just had the HPV virus vaccine come out. The company who made it has told every politician that's the best thing since chopped liver or whatever. They didn't tell that a lot of kids got sick and a lot of kids died from the vaccine. So I don't believe that every vaccine should be forced to be on people. There are some that really I don't believe in. On the other hand, if there is an epidemic or an outbreak, those kids should stay at home so that they don't get sick and that they don't bring in illness into the school.
Doctor, I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you at home, please head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question today. Should measles vaccines be mandatory? What do you think? Make your opinion heard. Now, when we come back, we're going to bring in our political roundtable here because there's a political debate surrounding this issue. And the GOP, they've got a problem on their hands here. Certain politicians say one thing one day and then another thing another day. Sound familiar? But on this thing, a couple guys want to be president. Some of their words may come back to haunt them. Stay with us.